Thank you for joining us today in Jennifer Schaus and Associates complimentary webinar series. We're coming to you live from Washington, D.C. today. This year on Fridays, we're covering procurement playbooks. We take a deep dive into doing business with the federal agencies and departments with our panelists. On Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, we cover the FAR supplements or procurement regulations for the agencies and departments. Fridays, we cover the business development and marketing aspects of the same agency and departments. The full schedule, sign-up links, and recordings are on our website. And here's just a look at our Wednesday schedule so far. As you can see, we've already covered most of the FAR supplements, and we'll be winding down the series on August 24th with the Veterans Administration. And as I said before, on Fridays, we cover the same agency or department in our playbook series. So here's just a look at our Friday schedule. We often feature a government speaker, and you can find this schedule and all of our past recordings on our website, and the recordings are also on our YouTube. So check also on our website under the Playbook tab. Please note that our summer soiree for U.S. federal contractors is this upcoming Monday, July 18th. Again, this upcoming Monday, July 18th. Anyone can register as an attendee. We also have corporate sponsorships available, and we're expecting about 100 to 200 federal contractors. The registration link is on our website under the Events tab, and you can find it in my auto signature when I send out the recording from today's webinar. Government agencies and sponsors will be announced as they confirm. We hope to see you next Monday at the Kennedy Center. We'd like to take a quick moment to thank our sponsors for the event on Monday: C3 Integrated Solutions, Insperity, White Oak, Black Fox, ViewTrend, and First National Bank. And from the government side, we have confirmed attendance from HHS Health and Human Services, the State Department, and the Naval Air Systems Command. Please purchase your ticket under the tab Events. And now we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors who make this webinar series possible. First, we'd like to thank the Virginia PTAC. Virginia PTAC is based out of GMU in Fairfax and offers free one-on-one counseling to firms in Virginia on federal, state, and local procurement topics. Online resources and group trainings are free with no restriction on business location. If you're interested in learning more, please use the links provided to explore what PTACs can offer. And a special thanks to the Federal Business Council. The FBC creates and manages virtual and in-person meetings and events to connect industry and government thought leaders, product providers, and solutions with government programs that use them. The FBC works with a variety of federal agencies to connect government and industry in the form of in-person and virtual conferences, training events, policy dialogue, and outreach. Over the last 40+ years, FBC has become a comprehensive resource for connecting industry and the federal government. Next, we'd like to thank our partner, Daston. Daston is an IT and cloud solutions provider working with corporations, the military, and government agencies to lower their costs, increase scalability, improve operational efficiency, and meet compliance regulations using targeted cloud-based solutions. Daston is a certified partner of Oracle NetSuite, a premier tier Google Cloud partner, and certified partner of Cisco, Virtue, AODocs, and Authenticate. For more information about Daston services or to schedule a complimentary consultation, please email Joe Alston or visit the Daston website. Next, we'd like to thank C3. C3 ISIT develops tailor-made technology solutions that increase efficiency, bolster productivity, and improve business processes. C3 is the leading provider of managed IT services as well as compliant cybersecurity solutions for federal contractors. C3 works with defense contractors to achieve and maintain CMMC 2.0, DFARS, and NIST 800-171. Contact C3 to learn more about the CMMC 2.0 Readiness Program. The contact information is on your screen. Next, we'd like to thank RLJ Financial. Founded in 2008, RLJ Financial Consultants is a customer-focused, quality-driven, minority and locally owned provider of commercial insurance brokerage services. Their services are designed to maximize your return on investment in managing the risk to your business. Call Roderick today at 202-832-1417 for a free consultation and insurance quote. And lastly, we'd like to thank the PubK Group. The PubK Group publishes news and insights for government contractors, agencies, and counsel. Every day, PubK delivers news on bid protests, contract disputes, new laws and regulations, cybersecurity requirements, False Claims Act activity, and developments in mergers and acquisitions in the GovCon community. In daily news briefs and in-depth conversations in podcasts and webinars, PubK leverages its deep bench of government contract experts to keep you up to date on fast-changing government rules and expectations. And every January, PubK presents its week-long annual review featuring more than 50 GovCon experts across a dozen panels, recapping the year's top developments. Participation and CLEs are free to subscribers. Visit PubK online at www.pubkgroup.com. All right, and today we will be covering doing business with the U.S. Agency for Global Media, formerly known as the Broadcasting Board of Governors. So let's meet our panelists for today. We want to thank our friends from FedMine, Ms. Archisha Meehan, for being with us. It's great to have you as always.
It's really nice to be here.
Thank you. And today we don't have a government speaker available as USAGM is a relatively small agency. So with that, Archisha is going to take us through the business opportunities and contracting trends. So I'll mute myself, and Archisha, you just let me know when you're ready for the next slide.
Thank you. Let's go to the next slide. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Archisha Meehan, and I'm the Director for the Federal Go-to-Market Division at GovSpend. Thank you, Jennifer Schwartz and Associates, for including me in this Playbook series. And I'm glad to be here today for the session on the U.S. Agency for Global Media. So, our FedMine's mission truly is very simple. We want to bring accurate information and unmatched transparency and accountability to the world of federal government contracting. We were founded in 2004 and basically work with many federal agencies, small and large government contractors, and other organizations. And last year we were acquired by GovSpend, which is the largest provider of data and intelligence in the state, local, and education markets. So next slide. And we can go on to the next slide and the one after that. So as we all, for those of you who've heard me, before, know that I always like to focus a little bit on, what is the mission of an agency? What is their charter? Because that gives us a better understanding not only of what they do, but the type of acquisitions that they might be interested in. And, you'll always see the priorities of the agency being reflected in their procurement trends. So this one, the U.S. Agency for Global Media, their priority is to actually inform, engage, and connect people around the world in support of freedom and democracy. Very important mission. The history of the agency spans more than 75 years, which actually, and it started with the creation of Voice of America, which I think we all know and have heard about. The original charter was signed into law by President Ford way back in 1976. The first Broadcasting Board of Governors was actually sworn in August of 1995, and in 2018, the name was changed to that of the U.S. Agency for Global Media. Today, there are 6 entities that fall under the purview of USAGM. Voice of America, which serves as a consistently reliable and authoritative source of news And their mission really is to make sure that the news is accurate, objective, and comprehensive. Also, Radio Free Europe or Radio Liberty, Office of Cuba Broadcasting, Radio Free Asia, Middle East Broadcasting Networks, and then you also have the Open Technology Fund, which is focused on developing and contributing to cutting-edge technologies and techniques, of course, related to the mission. So, this is just a little bit about the history and the various not organizations, but the entities that fall under the broad umbrella of USAGM. So let's go to the next slide. So year over year, we see that the agency is contracting over the last, in FY20 and 21. The spend fell to a little more than 160 million as compared to the 180 odd million that it was doing in 2018 and 19. So it's gone down a bit from what it did before. And then let's go to the next slide. In terms of, the spend itself, little less than 165 million were awarded in contracts in FY21 to 498 companies. Given the nature of the work that they do, we obviously will see a lot of foreign contractors, but we do have a lot of companies that are based in the US that do work with this agency, including Carasoft, SES Government Solutions, and CGI Federal, CTW, and of course the Associated Press. Next slide. In terms of the various NAICS codes that are being used, satellite telecommunications, of course, followed by software publishers, television broadcasting, computer-related services, independent artists and performers, news syndicates, radio networks. So as you could see, you see the NAICS codes that you would expect to see given the work that the agency is doing. Of course, looking at the PSC codes gives us a much better idea of what is it, what is the type of work that they might actually be doing. So next slide. Looking at the small business contracts in FY21, about little less than 39 million was given to 206 companies, with HA Design Group being the largest prime contractor, as also GovSmart, Sterling Computers, Fox Professional, so a nice mix of companies. Let's go to the next slide. And looking at our NAICS codes, it's a little different, as you could see. We see computer-related services, of course, a little bit of temporary help services, television broadcasting, software publishers. So again, a slightly different mix of NAICS codes than what we might have seen earlier. And that again is also reflected in their top PSC codes. So next slide. Looking at the types of set-asides that are being used, we do see, 8A sole sources, source contracts. So those of you that have an 8A or a relatively new 8A, it would be good to understand who are these companies that are winning the 8A sole sources. We also do see some contracts being awarded as SDVOSB contracts, sole sources, as also hub zone sole sources and set-asides. Looking at the place of performance, the majority of these contracts are performed in the DC metro area. So again, sort of ties in with what they do, but did want to make sure I point that out. Next slide. Pay attention. I mean, with COVID, this agency has not had much spend, and you could see that in FY20, they had about 26 companies that were awarded contracts under the COVID National Interest Action Code, and 32% of the contracts were awarded as small business. This spend has dropped substantially in FY21, and if I remember right, it did not have any contracts under the COVID National Interest Action Code for FY20. So next slide. And then looking at you know, I'm always going to tell you to look at the subcontracts. That is always important. So when you look at the subcontracts, you can see, not subcontracts, sorry, categories. It's Friday, sorry about that. You know, I'm always going to tell you to pay attention to categories. You know, the NAICS codes always give us a good indication. The PSC codes, which tie into the categories that, you know, GSA follows with its category management, gives us a much better idea. And you could see that professional services and IT are the top categories, with facilities and transportation and equipment related services making up a much smaller percent. But interestingly, you know, it's always good to also pay attention to how much is going to the small business contracts compared to other than small business contracts. So looking at categories always gives us a good idea of how the agencies are spending. And then this sort of then ties into my next slide, which is looking at how the agencies using the various IDIQs and GVACs that might be there. Given the fact that we did see that, you know, it does award 8A sole sources, we see that the agency has basically used, you know, the Salesforce implementation contract in FY21 compared to FY20. So I'm presuming there was some changes that happened there. But you also see the NASA SOUP 5, 8A STUS 2, and the CIOCS being used as some of the top GVACs. The next slide. And then, you know, this is such a small agency, so there was not much in terms of subcontract. I want to say there was one prime and one sub-awardee. So again, you had CGI, that was the prime, and Newspan Canada was the sub-awardee. So let's go to the next slide. This is, yeah. And then, so we sort of looked at the trends and what's happening, you know, see how did the agency purchase, you know, what is it purchasing, how much is it going to small versus other compared to other than small business. But let's also talk a little bit about opportunities, right? And as we've discussed, opportunities can be based on the new initiatives that an agency is looking at, which really depends on the funding that it gets. And then it also depends on the contracts for specifically for services and you know, that could possibly be recompeted. And how do we get this information? Basically, we have to go through the budget and program information, the strategic plans, pay attention to the pre-solicitations and source of sort notices, and then also look at expiring contracts. Now, and if you're looking at contracts, if you have a specific IDIQ, pay attention to the existing contracts that might be expiring on that, or pay attention to how the agency is procuring and see if there's a way to possibly, you know, have your IDIQ be used. So ways to use that data and to create those opportunities. So next slide. So then, you know, let's look at, I believe I did not see anything for Exhibit 53, so, you know, 300, so you don't see that slide here. So let's pay attention to their expiring contract searches. You know, let's look, we have a little bit more than $130 million that in terms of contracts that were awarded as other than small business that are expiring in the next 12 months. Contracts with Thomson Reuters, Associated Press, Globecom, all getting ready to expire over the next 12 months. Let's go to the next slide. And then if you look at in terms of the NAICS codes, you know, new syndicates, wired telecommunication providers, television broadcasting are all the NAICS codes that these expiring contracts fall under. And then when you look at the PSC codes, it's a little more different this time. We see many PSC codes related to broadcasting and radio and telecom, as part of that expiring contract search. So next slide. So looking at the contracts that are expiring for small business, we have a little less than $50 million worth of contracts, which have been awarded to companies such as 4 LLC, accounting firms, Emergent. So again, a nice mix of companies. Next slide. And then when I'm looking at the various NAICS codes that these fall under, we look at a lot of computer-related NAICS codes, but also radio and television broadcasting, as also marketing, research, and public opinion. So next slide. And then again, in terms of place of performance, the DC Metro is definitely the top region, especially for the small business contracts that are expiring. Almost $14 million worth of contracts that are expiring are 8A sole sources. So I would highly recommend, if you are an 8A, to pay attention and possibly do expiring contract searches where the 8A is also expiring. But we also have some Hub Zone and SDVOSB contracts that are expiring. So next slide. And that brings us to understanding the open opportunities that are out there. We do have a pre-solicitation, a special notice, and then some solicitations that are all open. Again, if you've heard me before, I will absolutely tell you to pay attention to the source of sort and pre-solicitation notices that are always being, that you want to respond to those, because that is how the agency is doing their market research. I think that is the end of my slides. Again, if you have any questions, absolutely, please do feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Archisa, for such a great overview. It's always so nice to see what data you compile for us. So as I said, today we don't have a representative from USAGM, but I just wanted to quickly go through some links with you. So here's the link to the main agency website and the small business office. Again, you can also find these on our website under our Doing Business With tab. And then I encourage you to look at the acquisition forecast. And then the SBA scorecard is not applicable for this agency, but again, just check our website for some more information there. So we just want to say a quick thank you again to Archisa for being with us and being our panelist today. And thank you to everyone for attending. These slides will be put up on SlideShare, and the recording will be on YouTube within about 24 hours, though usually even sooner. So make sure that you check those out. And again, like Archisa said, be sure to contact her with any questions you may have. Thank you so much. This concludes the webinar.